Cannot make this decision. It is too difficult.
Toy? Oh, it's not a toy.
Ask again later.
Taken out of bounds. Rogers along the sideline. Another one. They're still in deep trouble at midfield. They tried to do a couple of... The ball is still loose as they get it to Rogers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the field is out of the field.
He's not good enough.
Some time. Now he scrambles away from one hit. Looks, uncorks a deep one for the end zone. Thalen is down there. Oh, he got it! He got it! He got it! Touchdown!
Welcome to Crazy 8 Challenge. I'm your host, GC. As always, it's a privilege to be joined by Boji Wood. Each week, the coach dazzles us with his Shakespearean insight and analysis on college football's toughest matchups, while adding in a touch of Cliff Clavin and that unique nugget of information that always seems to get left behind. Next, we have Texas teacher Steve Mock. From the classroom to the cross-country course, Steve teaches us about what's important in college football and what's not. And as always, he reminds us that just because it happened last week doesn't mean it's going to happen this week. Some of Steve's teachings are a little controversial, however, because by his version of history, it was not an apple that hit Sir Isaac Newton on the head. It was the magic 8-ball. Also, the king of the court, Will Latch. Will, we missed you last week while you were out honoring your broadcasting obligations to several high school teams throughout Alabama. Welcome back this week, Will.
Good to be back.
Also tonight, we're fortunate to be joined by Dave Smith from Bloomington, Illinois. Dave played college football from 1993 to 1995. And while earning his degree in broadcasting at Olivet Nazarene University. Dave wasted no time putting his broadcasting talent to work, spending 10 years in radio and as a public address announcer for countless colleges and the Chicago Bulls.
You're not going to mention who he played for?
I was getting there.
You got to give Coach a shout out.
I was getting there. I wanted to save that. I wanted to save that to the end. I didn't want everybody to hold that against him. So as I got here, did I forget to mention his college coach was none other than Boji Wood. Dave, thanks for joining us tonight. You know what? You got it. I'm going to separate you two. There you go. All right. I don't know if I want you two together. So, you got any good insight you can give us on the coach there, Dave?
Coach was nothing but intense, especially out on the field coaching and just trying to get everybody motivated. And I guess as a defensive coordinator, that's what you want. But yeah, he was always there and wasn't afraid to get in your face to get you riled up. And he was a good coach.
I think it's important to mention too, regardless of sport, whether it's your male athlete, a female athlete, coach can be almost as instrumental in your life as a parent, a mentor. And the fact that you guys have maintained a relationship this long, it's nice to see that you guys still have a relationship this many years later.
Yeah.
Always good to bring up the memories.
Yeah. If we've got time at the end of the show, I'm going to get into some specific stories, but I'll just say that I'm very proud of Dave and the man that he is, and I'm honored and thrilled that he's with us tonight.
There you go.
Glad to still be in touch with him.
Yep.
So, and I want to thank Coach Chase, Go Blue 24, as our guest picker last week. He beat the 8-ball, and I want to congratulate Sabrina. She was this week's winner. I remember just because you don't win the week doesn't mean that the week didn't count, because you're still qualified for the end of the season drawing. So, but with that said, unless anybody's got anything else, let's go ahead and kick it off to our first game. First game, West Virginia at Texas Tech, 2 p.m. kickoff on Fox Sports 1. Coach, both teams coming in with rosters somewhat depleted by injury. West Virginia loses top tight end Mike O'Neill for the remainder of the season, but they're riding high after beating a strong Baylor team last Thursday. Some believe that if Coach Neil Brown can get the Mountaineers bowl eligible this season, it'll earn him another year in Morgantown. Coach, how do you see this one shaking out?
Well, both these teams 3-3, 1-2 in the conference. Now, let's look at their best wins. You mentioned West Virginia beating Baylor last week. Baylor's 3-3. Texas Tech, their best win is Texas in overtime. JT Daniels and Donovan Smith, the two quarterbacks, they've really been a turnover machine. They have 12 interceptions combined and have made a lot of poor throws in the games that I've watched. Mountaineers are 1-2 on the road. The Red Raiders are 3-0 at home. I think that's just enough to get the Red Raiders by. I'm going Texas Tech.
Will, what you think, Will?
I agree. I think it's hard to win in Lubbock, and I think Texas Tech is playing a little bit better than West Virginia right now. I got Texas Tech.
Dave, we'll go ahead and throw your feet to the fire here. How do you see this one breaking down?
Well, I think both teams have some high-powered offenses, but I do think Texas Tech, they've had a couple of tough losses the last few weeks, but I like the Red Raiders as well at home, so give me Texas Tech.
And finally, our Texas native, Steve Bach. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the benefit of the doubt, but that's not Tennessee Orange.
Whatever you say, GC, whatever helps you sleep at night. As far as this matchup goes, the weakness for West Virginia is pass defense. And so in this game, I look for the Red Raiders to throw the ball around. I think they'll go for it a bunch on fourth down like they always do. And with the game in Lubbock, I think it'll be a Red Raiders home win.
Steve, you mentioned throwing the ball around. In addition to throwing the ball, I think they'll be throwing those tortillas they like to throw when they score. And I'm going to go with Texas Tech myself. And the 8-ball likes Texas Tech. So there we go. Road game and tough for West Virginia on the road. And I think Lubbock's been a tough place to play all year. So next one, we got Cincinnati at SMU, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Cincinnati enters the contest 5-1. However, SMU has been struggling. Lost 3 straight until finding a way to score 20 unanswered points in the third quarter last week against Navy for a 40-34 win. Shaky, but a win nonetheless. Will, do you think the Mustangs can knock off the Bearcats this week?
I don't think so. I think, like you said, I think SMU's been a little inconsistent, a little shaky. I know it's at SMU, but I think Cincinnati gets the win.
Coach?
Yeah, the Cats lost their first game to Arkansas by just 1 score. Then they've reeled off 5 straight wins. They're not as good as they were last year, but they're good enough to best the Ponies. I'm going Cincinnati.
Dave?
Well, I honestly think this could be a nice little shootout. I did get to watch SMU. I know it was against Navy, but I like their quarterback, Tanner Mordecai. He threw the ball around quite a bit. I actually like both QBs, Ben Bryant for Cincinnati, also a really good thrower. But I'm going to take the Bearcats, so give me Cincinnati.
Steve?
Well, I hate having this much agreement, especially this early in the show where we all keep picking the same team, but ranked 21st in the country for Cincinnati and coming off of a bye week, I think they're a little bit healthier. And even though it's on the road, I'll take Cincinnati to win in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think we've got a clean sweep there as far as Cincinnati. I think they're just too much for SMU, even though it is on the road. However, the 8-ball likes the home team. SMU thinks Mordecai can get it done. He did. Mordecai looked good up at Maryland a couple weeks ago, but it just hasn't seemed to put that same game together. So, all right, this one I think is always an exciting one. Ole Miss takes on the Tigers in Death Valley this week, 2:30 p.m. on CBS. So far this season, Ole Miss has taken care of business, Steve, but they're giving up a lot of points. That said, though, LSU's been a bit of a roller coaster when it comes to consistency. So I think this one's could go either way. But, Steve, as always, you seem to take the tough one. So how do you see this one?
All right, well, I think we'll finally get some variety on our panel here. For just the second time in 60 years, the Rebels have started a season 7-0. Jackson Dart leading the offense that's ranked 15th in the country. And while the Rebel defense gives up big plays, they've also made some key stops. LSU, on the other hand, is unranked at 5-2, but the Tigers offense is on a roll, and QB Jaden Daniels looks very comfortable operating new coach Brian Kelly's system. Ole Miss has the better running game, more momentum, and more continuity in year 3 of Lane Kiffin's leadership. I think the turnover battle will decide this one, and I will go with Ole Miss on the road.
Here you go. Hotty toddy. Will?
Yeah, I think honestly, I agree with y'all. I think it's a toss-up. I think it can go either way. Obviously, LSU's been playing a lot better. Went into Gainesville and won against the Florida team that I think shocked a lot of people just because how inconsistent LSU started out. But watching Ole Miss and their running game last week against Auburn, I think their two running backs are hard to stop. But I got Ole Miss.
Dave, who do you like?
Well, Death Valley is always a tough place to play, but I really do like how Lane Kiffin's got his team playing right now. The Rebels are playing very well. I do think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to take Ole Miss as well.
Okay. Coach?
Well, I'm going to quit sending you guys my notes so y'all quit stealing my picks here. Now, this rivalry is great. If you're not familiar with it, it has a lot of history all the way back to Billy Cannon's Halloween run in the fog back in the 50s. This Rebel offense is a lot like Tennessee's, and LSU, they're plagued by turnovers, especially on special teams. They fumbled the opening kickoff against Tennessee. They never had a chance after that. I think it's going to be the same type thing. If I'm with Steve, turnovers are going to win this. If LSU can win the turnover battle, they've got a real chance, but they haven't shown me that they can win the turnover battle. So I'm going with Ole Miss on the road.
You know, I think that's the smart pick, but I'm actually going to go with LSU, which actually shocks me because I'm not sold on Brian Kelly, as you guys know, from the past couple of weeks. But Ole Miss just seems to be giving up too many points. Everybody they play, they seem to be giving up a lot of points. And I think home field, and I do think they probably win the turnover battle. So I'm going LSU, but I'm breaking with the pack there, and the 8-ball likes Ole Miss as well. So, I mean, you guys will be having hotty-totties with the 8-ball. Now, Coach, I got to tell you something. You know, 8-ball was on fire, okay, and you were razzing him, and then he comes out here, he gives you his autograph and taunts you going 9-1. And you have been nothing but nice and respectful to him. You haven't taunted him one time, and I think you've upset his world because, I mean, ever since you've been nice. I mean, people aren't used to you being nice, and so now he doesn't know what to do. And he's been he went 4-6 and 1-9 last week, so he's looking. I think he's ready to stay away from you and maybe call a truce, wave the white flag, and get back on track.
Hey, baby, don't hate the player, hate the game. I can't help you there, baby.
There you go. Hey, Dave, you're a Midwest guy. You know, you got Purdue versus Wisconsin. You know, this is I was a little shocked to see how tight Vegas has this matchup. I believe when it opened up, it was about 1.5. You know, Wisconsin's a team that seems to be looking for an identity after, cutting ways with Paul Chryst. Purdue, you know, even though with 2 losses, still seems to be playing very well, and they're in the thick of it for a spot in the Big Ten title game, tied with Illinois in that division, and with that game coming up in a couple of weeks. So obviously an important game for Purdue, but I see this one could be a little bit of a trap game if they let down and Wisconsin can sneak up on them. What do you think?
I do agree. And here in Illinois for the first time this year, we got snow earlier this week. I don't see snow in the forecast up in Wisconsin. I think we're supposed to have some nice weather in the 70s, so shouldn't be too much of a condition concern for the game. But Wisconsin looks to get back to the 500 with this one, and the offense has really struggled a lot lately without the consistent run game that they normally have with the big offensive line. Braylon Allen, the sophomore, he was predicted to be the next big back coming out for the Big Ten with Wisconsin, as well as quarterback Graham Mertz. Like, he has not performed very well at all this year. And Purdue, they like to sling that ball around with quarterback Aiden O'Connell, and he's been doing a really good job so far this season. But I do like the interim coach, Jim Leonard, here to get the defense ready, and I think Camp Randall might get rocking a little bit. I got the Badgers pulling this one out. I'll take Wisconsin.
Any insight real quick if they look back to Brett Bielema maybe to fill that void at the end of the year?
I don't think he's going. I really think Illinois is going to lock him down. He's been doing a really good job. And the Fighting Illini, they have a really good team. I like Brown, the tailback for them. They got some nice freshmen that have come into that class. So I think they have their guy. I don't think they're going to let him go.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'd be shocked. I think Brett Bielema, he's a loyal guy. And I think he would reckon they stuck by him when he had a couple tough seasons. So I think he'll recognize that. But you do hear, obviously, that in the rumor mill. Will, who do you like, Purdue, Wisconsin?
I think I'm going to go Wisconsin too. You know, if you look at Purdue's schedule, they've won a lot of close games, so their record could be completely flipped. But I like Wisconsin. I think they're playing okay right now, and I like them at home.
Steve?
Purdue has lost 15 straight to Wisconsin, and this looks like Purdue's best chance in a long time. New Badgers coach Jim Leonard is 1-1 thus far. As Dave mentioned, quarterback Graham Mertz is struggling. But I look for the Badgers to go back to their preferred brand of bully ball. They're going to play keep away. I think they will be able to run it effectively. And I look for them to make it 16 in a row over the Boilermakers.
Coach.
Go bet all your money on Wisconsin. I'm telling you right now, get every dime that you can get, put it on the Badgers. And I don't know that I can't tell you why other than this, is that the Boilermakers, they are heartbreakers for me. So, Syracuse, I picked against them. They stuck me in the heart. Maryland, I mean, come on, guys. You're killing me. So I'm going Purdue.
Ooh. You going Purdue?
I'm going Purdue.
You just told everybody to put all their money on Wisconsin. You're going Purdue. I like it.
I'm going Purdue because it didn't matter if it's a Purdue game, whatever I pick, it's going the opposite way.
They've been heartbreakers for me. I'm going to ride them. I'm going to let them break my heart one more week. I'm going with Purdue. And the 8 ball is going to get its heart broken with us, Coach. We're gonna sink or swim with that 8 ball this week, okay? So, hey, Steve, we got Oklahoma State, and I don't know what you've seen at TCU all year, but I was about to call you last week during the game and say they're finally going down, and they found a way to rally in the second half and come back, beat a very formidable Oklahoma State team in Mike Gundy. Texas finds itself in a position here where it controls its own destiny for the Big 12. Where, if they can get a win here this week and they have upcoming matchups against Kansas State and TCU. So interesting weekend in the Big 12 again, because you'll see 2 teams are going to put themselves ahead this week between the Texas and Oklahoma State game. And we'll preview the Kansas State and TCU game a little bit later. But Steve, you think Texas has got what it takes this week to go on the road and win up in Stillwater?
Well, it's always tough when you go visit Eskimo Joe's. Oklahoma State is ranked 11th. Coming off their first loss of the season on the road, double overtime at TCU. Texas struggled at home to put away Iowa State. The Longhorns are now 5-2 and ranked 20th. This one may be determined by health, as Oklahoma State is banged up. Senior quarterback Spencer Sanders leads a potent attack when healthy. However, by the end of that TCU game, he was hobbling, and many of his throws were coming up short. I may be a little biased here, but I'm going to go with the road team. I'll take the Horns. Hook 'em.
Dave.
Well, I do like what Coach Steve Sarkisian for the Longhorns has been doing down there in Austin. He's really starting to help bring Texas back into prominence, and I know that whole country of Texas has really been looking forward to it. Freshman quarterback Ewers has been playing well. Too bad he got hurt, so I don't think he's in. I would probably feel different, but I'm going to take Oklahoma State to rebound after a tough loss on the road last week to a strong TCU squad, so I got Oklahoma State.
Will.
I agree. I got Oklahoma State too. I think Coach Gundy always finds a way to beat somebody he probably shouldn't beat in Stillwater. So I got Oklahoma State in this one.
Coach, we talk each week, and the name consistently comes up: Gary Patterson. And what an addition he's been to that staff. And this is a game that I think that again, this is why you bring a guy like that on. Do you think he's got enough in the drawing board to shut Oklahoma State down and maybe sneak out the win on the road?
Go back and look at his history against Oklahoma State, how well they played them when he was at TCU. I think he's going to have a great plan put together for this coaching staff. This is going to be a great game. You look at these 2 teams, they are 7 points away from coming into this game undefeated. 2 of the 3 losses were in overtime. Oklahoma State, but TCU was double overtime last week, if I'm not mistaken, Steve. But with everything being said, I think that I think Ewers is. I think he's going to have a good game. I think he's over. I want to say over the injury. I think he's well enough that it's not going to that we're not going to be able to tell the difference between is he 100%, is he 75%, because he's better at 75% than most people are at 100%. But I think Gary Patterson is the difference, regardless who ends up playing quarterback for Texas. And Steve, I'm right there with you, baby. Hook 'em.
Yeah, I like Hookham too. I think, I think getting Ewers back, even though he may be a little bit limited this week, I think gave them an injection of energy they needed a couple weeks ago. And I think that defense is really starting to fire on all cylinders. And then you add Bijan Robinson in there. I just think it's, and I do think that Oklahoma State's going to reel a little bit from that loss, when they had it, they were up last week and let that one slip away. So I'm going with Hookham Horns as well. And the 8-ball likes to hook them too, Steve. So there you go.
Very good.
So, and we'll see here in a few minutes too. You not only do you get to pick Texas, but we got Texas A&M on the slate. So you're gonna make your son happy or not? So, all right, Coach. I think this one is one that people probably have had circled for a couple of weeks now. We've got Oregon versus UCLA out on the West Coast at Oregon, 2:30 on Fox. Obviously, both teams undefeated in conference play. Probably one of the tougher tests for Chip Kelly going on the road, and I think he'll probably get a pretty hostile reception going back into Oregon. So what do you think?
Listen, if I had told you back during the summer that there was going to be a top 10 matchup in the Pac-12 in late October, you wouldn't have picked this game because you wouldn't have expected UCLA to be in the top 10. As a matter of fact, UCLA is undefeated. Oregon isn't. Of course, they had that early loss to Georgia. It took 5 years to get his system implemented, but I think that Chip Kelly has finally got players in place that that fit his system, and the administration was very patient with him, gave him the time that he needed. This is the first top 10 matchup for the Pac-12 this late in the season. The last time that they had a Pac-12 top 10 matchup this late was in 1998. So it's been that long ago. Now, two quarterbacks, Bo Nix, of course, transfer from Auburn, Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA. They've both played well. The Ducks have won the last 7 in Eugene. Chad Charbonnet, the running back for UCLA, and Jake Bobo, the receiver for UCLA that transferred from Duke. I look for them to be impact players in this game. They're going to be the difference. I'm going the Bruins in an upset, UCLA. Chip Kelly goes back to Oregon and waves at him as he walks out of the tunnel.
You going to get a little Bo Nix magic up there in Oregon this week?
That's what I'm thinking. But UCLA, I wasn't very high on them, just like everybody else, honestly. But, man, I think Chip Kelly's done a great job in getting them playing the right way and comfortable. But I'm going to stay with my guy, Bo Nix, and I think he puts up some magic. I think Oregon wins.
Dave?
Well, I'm definitely going to put this on the schedule Saturday. I am watching this one. Both teams ranked in the top 10. You see a lot of good action out there in the Pac-10, so that conference starting to come back a little bit. But I see a lot of points being scored that game on Saturday, and I do like what Chip Kelly and UCLA are doing out there. But I'm going to say quack, and I'm going to take Oregon.
Steve?
Well, as Coach mentioned, UCLA is the last undefeated team in the Pac-12 at 6-0. Led by star quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, or DTR as they call him. They're coming off their bye week at 5-1. Oregon's ranked number 10, also coming off a week of rest. You have the Bo Nix experience. He's running an offense averaging 42 points a game. I think this will be a great, fun game to watch. And I'm going to go with Chip Kelly's old team to beat his current one and knock the Bruins from the ranks of the undefeated.
Dave, I'm going to quack right back at you because I agree with you. I think, I think Bo Nix has found himself a little bit in a less pressure situation where it's not so much on his shoulders to be that guy. And I think he's settled in nicely up there and has got a nice rhythm. So I am going with Oregon. So we got 3 Oregons and two UCLAs. Well, 8-ball likes Oregon as well. I will tell you real quick on a little side note on the Pac-12. I was a little disappointed to see Lincoln Riley come out after the game and chastise the officials a little bit. I mean, obviously, several games last week there was some disparity in penalties that you could do that, but I thought that was a little unfortunate, especially with his first loss in the Pac-12. But
yeah, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that you never hear a winning coach complain about the officials?
All right, Dave. I think one that, I think this one, and I don't know if you've got an update, but Minnesota versus Penn State. Penn State obviously went down last week at Michigan, played tough in the first half. Questions, I think, of whether or not Minnesota's quarterback is going to be able to go. And I think that could be, a key factor in which way this game goes. But what are your thoughts?
I do think the backup for Minnesota is playing, so they're banged up quite a bit. A local kid, Chris Bell, that was a receiver for Minnesota, he's out for the season, so they've been dinged up, but they've got one key player, or tailback, Muhammad Ibrahim, who's averaging over 130 yards a game. He is the key to the Minnesota offense, and both teams did take tough losses last week. Minnesota went down to Illinois, and Penn State falling to Michigan. They did not look good at all. And I'm a Michigan fan, so I love seeing it, and I'm glad they stuck it to them. But we might actually have a shootout this weekend with both offenses being high-powered, and they're both averaging over 30 points a game. But like I said, both those players, Muhammad Ibrahim from Minnesota, if he can get the running game going for the Gophers, and then quarterback for Penn State, Sean Clifford, he's dangerous with his arm and his legs, but he was really inconsistent last week. But he can sneak up on me with him taking off and running the ball, and he tries to keep the defense fairly honest. And I think defense is actually going to win this game, whoever best shows up. Defensively, Minnesota allowing just over 11 points a game. Penn State, they're allowing about 19 points a game, and I know that average went up last week with the big game let up from Michigan. But I'm going to take Penn State. I think they got a whiteout going on this weekend, and they rebound in Happy Valley, so I will take the Nittany Lions.
Steve, we talk about that somewhat every time Penn State comes on the board is Sean Clifford. Great quarterback, but just seems to not be able to find that consistency. And you just don't, as much as he can help you, sometimes he can hurt you just as much. So where do you think this one goes?
Well, he also left that game against Michigan with what they were calling an upper body injury. And I think as we go to air, we're not quite sure what his health status is. I know that Minnesota wants to run it, and the Nittany Lions could not stop the running game against Michigan, but I look for Penn State to bounce back at home, so I'll go with Mount Nittany.
Will?
I agree with y'all. I think Penn State at home, night game, wide out. I think they're pissed off from last week. I think they bounce back, and I think they handle Minnesota pretty easily.
Coach?
Well, this great Penn State offense, high-powered, scoring every which way you can. What are they averaging, Dave? Did you say 41, 42? What is it?
Yeah, it's like 42.5 points a game.
Okay. The only Power 5 team they've scored more than 17 points against have been Auburn. And so, I think the five of us and my dog could score 17 against Auburn right now. I think the Gopher defense makes the difference here. I'm going Golden Gophers go in to the Valley, and they walk out with the sun on their back. Minnesota.
Coach,
even though it's a night game, they're going to walk out with the sun on their back.
Maybe I'm not trying to be a Big Ten hater. We got the coach on from last week, Coach Chase and all that, and it almost feels though like the whiteout seems to almost happen all the time now. It's like kind of lost a little bit of its prestige or the excitement behind doing it. It's almost like it seems like every time you turn around. Maybe that's just me, but it just seems to be that should be something you call out for the game. And I don't know. So it's Maybe they're still as enthusiastic about it up there as they used to be, but it just doesn't feel like it to me down here. But I am going to go with Penn State. I just think I would love to go with Minnesota, and I love their running back up there, but I think they're too banged up, and on the road, I think that's just going to be too tall of an order. So I'm going Penn State, and the 8 ball is going to join me and go Penn State as well. So, all right, Coach. We've had several conversations on the show about Jimbo Fisher. Obviously season not going in any way, shape, or form the way they had hoped down there in College Station. They're traveling out to South Carolina, which I think South Carolina too is a little bit I wouldn't say underrated, but underappreciated because, while they're 4-2 and they did come off with a win last week against Kentucky, but obviously Kentucky a little bit depleted in their personnel. But, their losses have come to some good teams, but their losses have been big. I mean, they've lost big when they've lost. So I think this is going to be, obviously Jimbo Fisher needs to get this one to kind of salvage the season, in my opinion. But I think if South Carolina can get a win here, they might really get some confidence going into the rest of the season and really maybe turn themselves around and see themselves in a pretty exciting bowl game. So, where do you see this one playing out?
A&M is 8-0 all time versus the Gamecocks. Last year it was 44-14 down in College Station. But the Aggie struggles, if you mentioned, they're well documented. The two quarterbacks in this game, Spencer Rattler, the transfer from Oklahoma, and Haynes King, the heir apparent after last year, they've combined for more interceptions than they have touchdowns. Now, Williams-Brice Stadium, if you've never been there, it can be an intimidating crowd. The students are right on top of the visitors' bench. Jimbo pressure, he's feeling pressure right now. You know that he is. Everybody knows that he is. And whether and as coaches, you don't do this purposely. It just happens. That pressure gets passed on to your players because those, again, players, they hear what's said around campus. They hear what's said on the radio. They read in articles on the internet. They know that the pressure is on their coach, and they feel that too. Well, Shane Beamer, he's got the Gamecocks just playing loose and without fear, with a lot of fun. I think this is the year the Gamecocks finally break through and beat the Aggies. I'm going South Carolina at home.
I agree. I got the Gamecocks at home too. I think they're playing well. I think last week, even though Kentucky is beat up, I think that was a big confidence boost. But I tell you what, man, if Jimbo Fisher loses this one, they might be trying to find the $96 million that they owe him to buy him out. I mean, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but it'd be tough to see. But I got the Gamecocks.
Dave?
Well, I think the bye week last week for Texas A&M is going to help them. I said they're looking to get right, get over that 500 level. But South Carolina has been playing very well the last few weeks. But I do think Jimbo Fisher is going to get that young team ready to go and get above that 500 mark. So I'll take Texas A&M.
Steve, the tale of two seasons for Spencer Rattler. Last year starts the season as a Heisman Trophy kind of front runner in Oklahoma. Then loses his position and then finds himself transferring. And now you think maybe tries to use this one as a little bit of a statement game.
Yeah, I think he would like to, but want to and being able to are two different things. So I'm not quite sure he's going to have what it takes. A&M likes to play low-scoring games. Spencer Rattler tends to turn the ball over quite a bit. My son has laid down the ultimatum that the cost of books and meals are going up, and he's not coming home till Christmas if I keep picking against A&M. So I'll go with Jimbo Fisher to get back on track.
There you go. Well, the cost of books and meals are going to go up if they got to find $96 million. You'll see you see a 96% increase on everything down there. So
yeah, but those Jimbo T-shirts are going to be 90% off in the merch department.
There you go. So I'm sure you could come up with a nice little slogan or phrase, to for the next coach. What was it, Texas years ago? Smart and strong. I mean, how long did those last?
They were on sale pretty quick.
I'm going to go with South Carolina. I like them at home. I think, Texas A&M seems to only find a way to win when they get some turnovers. I know Rattler's turning it over, but I do like what Beamer's got going there. So, and the 8-ball likes South Carolina at home as well. So, all right, 2 games left, guys. And Steve, as I mentioned earlier, this one is another interesting matchup in the Big 12. Really has Big 12 title implications. You got K-State coming in with versus TCU, which is still undefeated after rallying back last week. Each one of these teams controls their own destiny, with Texas probably being in the best seat if they can get a win this week. But, winner here obviously definitely gets a leg up. So how do you see this one coming up?
Yeah, the Big 12 keeps playing King of the Hill. 2 weeks ago, it was Kansas on top going down. Last week, it was Oklahoma State going down. And this week, we have this matchup where TCU is 6-0, ranked number 8 in the country, and coming off that thrilling come from behind 43-40 double overtime victory over Oklahoma State. The Wildcats are ranked 17th. They're coming off a bye week. And the story for K-State has been quarterback Adrian Martinez, the transfer from Nebraska. In his last 3 games, Martinez has accounted for 998 yards of offense and 10 touchdowns. He also has not thrown an interception or lost a fumble all season. K-State's defense is ranked 14th nationally, only allowing 16.7 points a game. TCU's offense is a real triple threat, led by quarterback Max Duggan, running back Kendre Miller, and outstanding receiver Quentin Johnson, who's so explosive. The Frogs are averaging 46 points a game. They haven't been held under 34 all year, and playing at home, I'll take the Frogs.
Will?
I agree with Steve. I like TCU at home. I think they're a pretty hot football team right now, and I think they're playing well. I think their offense carries them this one, and I got TCU.
Dave?
This could be on the watch list for Saturday as well, and I do think both teams have been playing very well so far this year, but I think the offense of the Horned Frogs is going to be a little bit too much, so I got TCU.
Coach?
If both these teams play up to their potential, I think Kansas State has a chance to win. However, I don't think the Wildcats have enough offensive firepower to win this game. That being said, I love the story of Martinez and Dugan. Both of these guys have faced adversity. Of course, Martinez was always on the cusp of great things at Nebraska, and he's performed just like you always thought he could since he got to Manhattan. And listen, Dugan is the guy that he was demoted. He didn't even win the starting job. It took an injury to get him back in. And he faced that adversity of being demoted and came back with a vengeance. And I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. This is one of those games you say, man, I'd like both these teams to win, but I've got to pick, so I'm going to pick TCU mainly because they're at home.
Yeah, I think that's what tips it. I think if this game's on the road, TCU loses. I think they keep expending a lot of energy to win some of these games, but they keep finding a way to get it done. With it being at home, I like TCU. And the 8 ball likes the home team as well, likes TCU. All right, last one of the night, Pitt versus Louisville. Will, why don't you go ahead and take this one for us and close us out?
Yeah, so I think both teams are coming off a bye week last week. I think Pitt still has something to play for. After losing to Georgia Tech, who's not a very good football team, I think they've gotten back on track and they beat Virginia Tech pretty handily. So I like Pitt on the road at Louisville. I just think they have more to play with. I think they come in with a little bit more fire.
Steve?
Yeah, I just can't get that Georgia Tech loss out of my mind for Pitt. And like we say on some of these games, probably home field advantage comes into play here. I'll take Louisville.
Dave?
Saturday night in Louisville. Well, this is going to be a close game, I think. But I do like quarterback for Pittsburgh, Keaton Slovis. I think he's been playing pretty well, and I think the Panthers are going to go on the road and get the victory. I'll take Pittsburgh.
All right, Coach?
Of all the games that we've talked about this year on all the shows, this is one game that I really just don't care anything about. I didn't do very much research on it, but as a kid, I remember the great Pitt teams of Johnny Majors and Tony Dorsett, and I love their uniforms, and so I'm going Pitt.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there was a little bit of a stretch this week finding a few games. So this one kind of limped in there. I'll agree with. But I'm going to go Louisville. I can't get past the loss to Georgia Tech right now. And I know that's probably not very flattering for Georgia Tech, but they've been so inept all year.
You're going to feel foolish when the Yellow Jackets run the table.
No, I know. But maybe they're trying to show they want Dion that they want him, man. Maybe they're trying to get that flash out there, right? But the 8 ball likes Pitt. So 8 ball likes Pitt. So there we go. Dave, I think somebody said, one of you guys said right when we got on, we got time for real quick. One of you guys had something to say. I think you either had some juice on Coach or him on you or something.
Yeah, well, I'll say this is that and David he was a freshman when I got to Olivet, and Dave was in my scheme. Dave was going to be my defensive tackle or nose tackle, one or the other. He was going to play because we would swap those positions out depending upon which package we had. I think Dave always envisioned himself as the next Lawrence Taylor. I said, no, Dave, you're the next Refrigerator Perry. That's you're my man. And let me tell you this, Dave is one of my favorite players ever because he fought through injuries to play, and he never complained. And it's no doubt that he's a Michigan man because Dave is all about the team. There was never a time that I asked him to do something that I was worried about what kind of effort that I was going to get. I was going to get the very best 99 had to give me, and I always did that. And we've stayed in contact over the years. And, and whether it's a month, we haven't talked for a month, or we haven't talked for a year or 2 years, whenever we reconnect, it's just like we picked up where we left off. And like I said, I've coached hundreds and hundreds of players over my career, and he is one of my favorites. I'll say that.
Thank you, Coach. You're one of my favorites as well. Always good to stay in touch with. Become a good friend now, so I do thank you for the kind words. And all I can say is, I took my 2 A gaps, tried to control those, and that was it.
That's it.
Dave, real quick. I mean, and I noticed it said on what Coach sent me was that you did some work with the Chicago Bulls, and I mean, I don't think there's a greater atmosphere to enter. I mean, I grew up there. Alan Parsons Project coming in and starting. You got any nuggets from there that you can share with us?
Probably my best accomplishment in my life, besides marrying my beautiful wife. But the legendary Ray Clay, who was a PA announcer there during all the championships years, when he left and went to Washington when Michael Jordan left, it left an opening, and I took the opportunity. I beat out over 5,000 jobs. One of my proudest moments to get that job, and I was able to be there for 17 years. And then some new management people came in and didn't want to renew my contract, so they decided to let me go.
Yeah, that seems the way it works. I think we've all been there one time or another, and usually that backfires on management more times than not. All right, guys. Well, thank you for your time tonight. It's going to be another exciting weekend. Congratulations again to Sabrina. Dave, always welcome to join us. It's a privilege of having you on tonight. Enjoyed your insights.
Thank you, gents. Appreciate it.
And as always, Coach and Will and Steve, it's a pleasure. You guys have a good evening.
See ya.